And so our next couple of theories are some interesting ones. So we've already talked about these as perspectives, so this shouldn't be too much of a leap. But we're going to start talking about our psychodynamic and humanistic theories. And starting with psychodynamic, by now you know that psychodynamic means Freud. And so Freud originally proposed that most of our behavior was coming from unconscious impulses and psychological defenses. So the idea that we're being driven by these internal processes that were going on maybe outside of our current consciousness, so our unconscious. And so the impulses, those unconscious impulses, are things that want to be expressed, things that want to get out, and our defenses are trying to keep those impulses at bay. So we have deep, dark urges that want to be expressed, but we know that that's not socially acceptable, so we push back those urges and defend ourselves. And again, it's Freud, so it's weird. That is totally okay. This is not what we're looking at as modern psychodynamic theory, but we'll get there. And so the idea here is that the conflict between our impulses and our defenses is producing this sort of manic energy that needs to be released, where we have to let off some of the steam created by these conflicts. And so our behavior is then motivated to try and funnel this energy from the conflict into some kind of socially acceptable output. And don't worry, I have an example, because this is something weird to kind of wrap your head around. And of course, again, because it's Freud, the strongest drives, the things that are pushing this psychodynamic theory the most, are things like sex and aggression. And so for our example, somebody who has really strong aggressive impulses and who is unconscious, strong aggressive impulses, and they are defending themselves against those impulses. They're keeping themselves from being an angry person. They're holding back aggression all the time. Maybe they'd pick a career that lets them blow off some steam. Maybe they're going to funnel their aggression into being a trial lawyer where they can fight with other lawyers in front of a judge. Maybe they're going to be an athlete where they can channel all that energy into pushing themselves to perform more. And it doesn't have to be their career. Maybe they have a hobby. Maybe they go kickboxing on the weekends. Something to help them release that pent-up energy. And so this was called Freud's dual instinct model, because you had your instincts and your impulses and your defenses acting against each other. And if you can't tell from how we've been talking about it so far, this model was not well supported. Nobody in the field really got in behind this. But as we've learned from Freud and his wacky schemes, is that his theories aren't necessarily useful in and of themselves, but they pushed others in the community to propose other theories. So modern psychodynamic theory came from Freud's original psychodynamic theory, but it doesn't have a lot in common. So our modern psychodynamic theories are going to focus on the role of still unconscious motive intentions, but they're not ignoring conscious processes. It's not all deep, dark, sexual and aggressive urges that we can't acknowledge. They're also going to deal with conscious processes as well. And they're also going to start looking specifically at things that are motivating us in terms of self-esteem and social belonging, bringing in some of those human perspectives that lead us into our next topic, which is specifically the humanistic theories. And we're going to talk about the big humanistic theory, which is Abraham Maslow and his hierarchy of needs. But we will also mention another humanistic theory as well, because this isn't the only one, it's just the biggest and most popular. And so Abraham Maslow was one of the driving forces behind humanistic theories. And he started this kind of an approach, he had this humanistic perspective, because he felt that all of the other perspectives were ignoring the human-centric types of motivations. he felt that they were ignoring that internal striving for personal growth. And again, a lot of these, as humanistic theories, only apply to humans. So don't worry about trying to make this work for sea lions or any other creature, just humans here. And so the very basics of Maslow's humanistic theory was that we have two broad categories of needs. The first are our deficiency needs, and these are things that are concerned with our physical and social survival. This is the stuff that we absolutely need to live and survive as a human. And then the second category are our growth needs. So these are specific to humans, and they're going to be things that help us develop our potential. So they're not necessary to survival, but they're necessary for us to thrive and be the best humans that we can be. So the deficiency needs are something where if we don't have it, we're not going to survive long term. And our growth needs are more of the psychological needs, the things that will help us be better people. And we'll see more examples of all of these. And so Maslow took these two types of needs, our deficiency and our growth needs, and arranged them on a need hierarchy, which is why I talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which we actually see on the next slide. And our deficiency needs, the things core to our survival, are located at the bottom. They're forming the basis for the rest of this hierarchy. And our growth needs then get located at the top. And so the idea is that once you can satisfy your basic physiological needs, the things that you need to survive, you can work your way up to the next tier of needs. So you work your way up this pyramid of things that you require. And then the end goal, the thing at the very top, what you're striving for is self-actualization, which is a very abstract term that means something along the lines of becoming the best person that you can be. And so here's an example of one of the hierarchies of needs. And I say one of because if you start Googling images for Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you'll find a bunch of the same basic shape, but different textbooks tend to divide these categories up differently. So don't focus on the base category is specifically psychological needs, and then the sixth from the bottom is specifically aesthetic needs. That's going to change between different interpretations of the model. But what we care about is the overall trend. And that is that our deficiency needs, the things that we need to survive, are at the bottom. And our growth needs, the stuff that helps us be better humans, are towards the top. And the idea is, if you have the very base things met, so you have your physiological needs met, you have food and drink, then you are going to survive your immediate future. So you have enough to eat, you have enough to drink, you're going to survive. Okay, let's focus on our next priority. And these are your safety needs. So you want to have psychological safety and security. So you want to have a place that you can live where you're not actually in danger. So those are your safety needs. And if you have that met, then you can move to the next category, where you can get belongingness and love needs. So surrounded by people who appreciate you for who you are. And so on and so forth. And we get then into our growth needs, where it's things like cognitive needs, the ability to seek knowledge and understand what's going on, or aesthetic needs, to surround yourself with beauty and things that make you happy. So you progress up this pyramid as you meet all of the needs that fall below whatever tier you're at. But if one of these lower tiers is met, so we're actually running into a situation like that right now, where our safety needs are starting to be disrupted. People are worried about their safety and where they should be and what they should do. And if you're worried about your safety, then finding a beautiful place is less of a concern. You have to focus regress back to a lower tier and deal with that need before you can focus on other things. So you have to prioritize the things that are lower on this hierarchy in order to progress and survive. And of course, critically thinking, this isn't necessarily the be-all and end-all explanation of human motivation. The first thing that we have against this theory is self-actualization as a goal is really vague. Like, what does it mean to be the best human you can be? How do I self-actualize? How do I know that I've achieved that? Can you achieve that? That's a really tough one. And so a lot of people, even within this humanistic perspective, don't like that as a final goal. We also, again, have problems where this hierarchy can't explain behaviors that go against the ranking of needs. Again, diets throw a wrench into our machine here, where people go hungry, they lose the very base of our pyramid in order to lose weight. But this tells us that if you are hungry, if you don't have enough food, then you can't worry about any of these other things. And yet people who are dieting do it all the time. In more extreme cases, we have prisoners of war, people who have been captured during wars, who will endure torture, who are having their safety needs disrupted in order to protect their comrades, people that they value for, if we go back here, for people who are, you know, their belongingness. They are people that are part of their company, their family. So we have lots of examples where behaviors don't quite follow this hierarchy, but it's a decent framework to start with, which is why we talk about it. And then, as promised, we have another humanistic theory, and this is the self-determination theory. And this is the idea that you need these three broad categories. You need fulfillment in each of these categories to feel like you are living the fullest life that you can live. So the first of these is competence. So you have to have the opportunity to develop your own skills, to become competent in a particular task, and be able to show that competence by meeting trials. So you're going to encounter tough situations, and you're going to thrive because you have the skills to succeed in that situation. You also need autonomy. The idea that your actions have consequences and that you can have self-determination. You have your own, you can make decisions that matter to yourself. So what you do matters, and it can have influence on your environment. And then the third broad category is relatedness, which is that you have meaningful bonds with other people. So you have to be able to have friends, comrades, colleagues, people you can talk to. And if you can meet all three of these broad categories, then you have fulfilled your purpose. You have sort of basically the equivalent of having achieved self-actualization. So if you satisfy all three of those needs, you've reached that fulfillment. And if you are deficient in any of those three categories, then there are both psychological and physiological consequences. So if you don't have people around who you can talk to, you're going to feel lonely. Maybe you're going to start feeling depressed. Autonomy, if no matter what you do, the outcome is always the same, or you're not given a chance to show your competencies, then you're not going to feel fulfilled in life. And again, humanistic theories end up kind of difficult to describe, but that's why we lump them all together at the end. It's just interesting to consider how you can look at motivation from those perspectives. So the next slide is actually a collection of resources for you guys. So if you want to get a little bit more detail on incentive theories, or the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, or a video on specifically the hierarchy of needs, or just an overview of motivation as a whole, these are all YouTube videos that I've put together that can give you a little bit of extra information. So I don't want to take a ton of time watching a bunch of videos, but if that's something you feel like you'd benefit from, then you are more than welcome to go in and take a look at these videos yourself.